You're expanding and contracting your field of view. You're inspiring new ideas. Things that seem implausible actually come from your gut, right? There's another kind of firing of neurons kind of in your intestinal tract. That is kind of how artists use it. It actually links to their brain in a certain way. And that is your intuition, right? And so,
if you've ever rearranged your kitchen or tried to make your morning routine less chaotic, you're designing an experience without even knowing it. But what happens when you start doing it on purpose? Today, I'm joined by Wayne Lee, Professor of Design and Engineering and the author of Design Empathy and Contextual Awareness, to explore how design thinking makes you more curious, more empathetic, and better at navigating real life, from conversations to career choices to everyday problem solving. Welcome to the show, Mind Blend. I'm your host, Karen Chong, and I'll be diving into the minds of incredible people, each an expert in their very own way. Together, we'll uncover insights and share ideas so you can be inspired and empowered to navigate your own unique journey in life. Ready to get curious and discover what's possible? Let's blend. Hi, Wayne.
hi, how's it going?
Good. Welcome to Mind Blend.
Yeah, thanks. I'm happy to be here.
I'm really interested in your story. What happened
Sure.
that led you to what you're doing today?
Yeah, it's been a long, I don't want to go too far back, right? But it's been a long career and a wonderful kind of journey around art and design. I think it's always started as my parents, right? My mom is a classically trained brush painter. They're both of my parents are from Taiwan, and my dad is a PhD polymer chemist. So,
Wow. Okay.
so part of it has always been this love of art and science. And so, whether it be kind of an analytical mind from more my dad or a more free-flowing intuitive mind from my mom, kind of having, and then pursuing both in school, right? I wound up graduating with both mechanical engineering and fine arts degrees. So that kind of dual degree nature led to car design at Ford and Volkswagen. It led to product design at IDEO, and then graduate school at Stanford University, where I learned a lot of what I learned in human-centered design or user-centered design back then was kind of from IDEO and from the Stanford program, where we established design thinking. So that, and then that led into furniture and housewares design at Pottery Barn, along with lecturing at Stanford University. And now I'm here at Georgia Tech. So Georgia Tech found me as adjunct at Stanford, be a position to extend that philosophy out to the East Coast. So that was with my graduate advisor's blessing, it was a wonderful opportunity to kind of think about. And this is always tricky with technology. You're working at, we're at a tech school. Stanford's an R1 research university. How do you humanize technology? How do you understand, we talk about user experience, either software or computer interfaces. My research area was human machine interface. So you think about the first kind of the automobile, it's a physical widget with a digital screen, whether instrument cluster, radio, nav screen, whatever it is. And that's a lot of my research, is how do you humanize the experience such that, one, it's safe to drive, but also two, enjoyable and pleasurable to drive. You're thinking about what are those things that define the driving and riding experience, and then how do you use both hardware and software in order to make sure and execute on it. So that's kind of the long story short about blending art and science to make technology human.
Yeah, that resonated with me so much, because you have interfaces that you can tell that it's not even really designed, but it's put together by just the people on the engineering side. You can hardly communicate with it. So before we dive into design and design thinking, you mentioned design thinking earlier. Let's clarify that for our listeners who are not familiar with design thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you can think about design, just like like in physics, right? If physics goes through school of thought, right? So, Einstein created, say, like classical physics, laws of motion, and then you move into non-linear physics or non-classical physics, and then you go into quantum physics. So different schools of thought. So you might have think of art and design starting with, say, modernism and the Bauhaus, and then you have postmodernism and those types of things. So design is the same way, right? Design had the same thing, where more modernist approach, which is form and function, form follows function. And then that's more of the Bauhaus, and now you move into where this more, what I would consider a a newer philosophy, a more, akin philosophy, which is the human-centered design. So what human-centered design is, and then also known to other people and practitioners as design thinking, right?
Mm.
So looks at putting the human first when you design products, services, performances, whatever it is, whatever you make, right? I use product as a very loose definition. It does not need to be a widget. It does not have to be a physical thing. It's any product of your imagination. So if that's software, hardware, interpretive dance, a public policy, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That's a product, right? It's a product of your imagination. So the design thinking looks at putting the human central to that philosophy, but also in balance with the technology used to create and bring it to market, right? And the business forces, the infrastructure around distributing and selling. So if you think of it, like if you look up design thinking triple Venn diagram,
Yes.
they'll put the human, technology, and business in these three separate things, where design thinking or innovation is the central of all those things, those overlap. You have to be able to balance those three concepts in order to make successful products for people, right? So the human represents usability, desirability, right? The social sciences, the aesthetic, the fine arts, those things. The technology represents the computer science, material science, engineering. And then the business represents, your accounting, your org theory, behavioral psychology, things like that. Desirability, usability on the human, feasibility for the engineering, and viability for the business. So it's a philosophy that's more encompassing than just form follows function.
Yeah. So just right before I started this episode, I was talking to my family about like two different brands of devices of the same thing, basically digital writing pad. Let's say if we're applying this philosophy in creating this digital writing pad, how would that look like? Like, what would be the three things that are in the Venn diagram?
Yeah, let's go through that. That's a fun one. I mean, because for the longest time, right, I've always sketched in analog notebooks ever since I first started art school, right?
Yeah.
And probably prior to that in high school, I kept like a little, day planner log or whatever. And it wasn't until maybe I would say 2020 or 2022 maybe, or somewhere around there, that I switched to a digital drawing instrument, right? So all right, let's look at the human. Let's take the human. What we would probably do from a human-centric design is observe people utilizing writing instruments, right? Interview them, observe them. Like, so talk to artists, talk to poets, talk to a screenplay writer, talk to an engineer that calculates, and then how do they utilize what they use to take notes in? An artist might use it to draw sketches, but a computer scientist might use it to plan out an algorithm, right? And so what is it that they are writing down? How are they utilizing the writing instrument? How much do they care about a pen and paper analog feeling? For an artist, that actually is quite important. Like the friction of the ballpoint or the felt tip, you actually learn there's a lot of information signaling that comes through the texture or tooth of the paper, along with the nib or the felt tip of the pen, and the strokes you can create at the angle of attack that you draw with.
Yes, it's like calligraphy too.
Yeah, it's like calligraphy, like it's the angle, right? So of the nib, and again, different people will use drawing instruments differently. So again, if you talk to a poet, they may not, well, I never actually use the pencil on the side and shade on the side of the pen, but I might use a pen to indicate stanzas or codas in a poem. And I might use a certain shorthand, right, that tells me this is A writing sequence, B writing sequence, and I might annotate it in a way that's unique. So what you're trying to do from a human-centric way is to understand how people utilize things in their own way that defines their culture. So a poet would have a subculture of poet writing. An artist would have a subculture of artist, being a visual artist. So understanding that level of sophistication about different people who use drawing or writing instruments differently is the human-centric part, right? Now let's move into the technology part. If you have to make a product and it's a digital writing instrument, right? Because it's a digital pad, not an analog one. Then we'd have to look at the technology of it to say, okay, if I were to design it, if I need the right technology for that right person, if I need to be able to take a pen nib and put it on its side, well, then the digitizing layer of the iPad or there's more than one technology, right? An iPad like this one, right? It's an iPad with this, right? So That's capacitive layer, multi-touch screen, right? If you use an e-ink pad, like a Remarkable tablet, that's more of an e-ink display,
Yeah.
and it's not a capacitive layer. You use a resistive layer on top, right? If you were to use a different technology, I'm thinking like a Wacom tablet, right? They use they use a different type of kind of pen tip that measures resistance. So now the question there is, which of those technologies will give the artist the shading idea where they hold the pencil like this, right? The sideways, kind of between their second and third finger, versus a poet who would hold it like a normal pencil, right? And attack using the tip of the pen. So which technology prescribe or allows that type of motion or that type of activity to happen the best? Now, so that would be the technology side, choosing the right technology, the appropriate technology for the human activity. Then now the business person looks at viability. If you only sell, like, are there enough artists on the planet that could justify the more expensive technology? If it was a more expensive technology, because you have to now look at the angle at which the pen can touch the surface.
Yeah.
You know, if it only touches between the vertical and 12 degrees off vertical, then maybe the technology is much easier to execute. But if you need to attack the pen so the pen is 5 degrees from the flat of the surface, all of a sudden that technology is really expensive. So if it was, let's just say 5, then now the viability, the business person is like, well, can I sell enough to artists? Are they willing to pay enough for that technology? Or do I have to sell to poets, artists, writers, and engineers all together? And if I do so, the volume selling price of the unit comes down because you're making more of them. But at the same time, are you then, that's that balance. If you now make more of them, they have to be more universal. If they be more universal, then that means that perhaps that humanity that you are streaking to serve isn't quite served well. And that goes back to your point. Something that is just engineered to function, to serve the most people, may not actually provide the experience that people crave. That's where that viability, that's where that business has to come in to say, how large is this market? What are they willing to pay? And do you have that balance there? Because the more of, obviously, it's a price volume curve. The more you make, the cheaper something gets per unit. So you have to size the market relative to the value you're driving. So those things, it's so much more than form follows function. Right. And that's why we're past that modernism. We're in postmodernism.
And I love the approach because everyone is really thinking of not just their own area. Because for the people who are only concerned about producing the thing, like producing like the engineering, the production part, they don't care as much. But that's exactly what you meant by putting the human in the center. And I really like that holistic thinking. And I feel like it can be applied to daily life. You don't have to be producing something.
Karen, I mean, I couldn't 100%. I couldn't agree more. What I like about design thinking and about, what I wrote in my book is that it's holistic, right? Irrespective of what your major is or what job function you have inside a certain company, right? IDEO would always say when I worked there that they like to breed T-shaped people.
T-shaped.
Which means that you may be good at one thing. You'll get a degree in something, right? You're going to be an expert in something. But are you broad enough or inspired by multiple disciplines in order to understand and be inspired by everyone else? If for like you mentioned, for a company, yes, you might have an accounting department, an engineering department, a design department. It's how much the designers can also understand engineering and business. It's how much the engineers can respect design and not override the designer's wish to serve the human, right? Because because they're at different stages of the development process. The engineer is closer to manufacturing and engineering, right? They may not be as close to marketing and design because of when they touch the product. Because remember, several hands touch a product before it gets released. So having a company that is full of T-shaped people who can understand where this other perspective is coming from, it's more collaborative, it's more inclusive, it's more multidisciplinary, it's more empathetic. And what happens then is if you put the customer at the focus of your company, teach your workers how to get along with each other so that they're not silos in a company. There are actually more multidisciplinary, nimble teams at work. Then you wind up making a better experience for customers, and ultimately you become more financially successful because customers demand your product rather than the product that's not made for them. So there's two things. One, it can improve business a great deal. Two, as an individual, instead of a collection of individuals, it can improve your processes really well. Well, what I talk about is that, and this is kind of the research, holistically, when you think of creating something for someone, I don't care if you're making eggs for your roommate in the morning, right? Now you're an avian culinary designer, right? Now, if you go to the Cordon Bleu or you go to school, study for 4 years on how to make omelets, then now you're a capital Bachelor's of Science ACD major, right? But everyone is a designer in that sense, right? A little d designer, just like everyone who makes eggs is an avian culinary designer, right? So, everyone is a little e engineer, right? So in that sense, holistically, if you're a designer, and everyone is, because everyone has to create something for someone eventually, your mental state, when you are empathetic, when you care about people, that is one mindset. When you're creative and you need to now make things, like imagine a better future for someone, and then instantiate it, like make it for people, right? Through a prototype, mock-up, sketch, drawing, model, whatever. That's creative. And then when you have those things in your possession and you bring them back out to the field, you bring them back to people who go, which one of these do you like? Which one of these writing instruments do you like? Which one of these omelets do you like? And they go, I like that omelet. Now you are testing with people and understanding their preferences. That is a critical mindset. That's what engineers do, is they value different qualities and they put numbers and ascribe numbers to them. So do marketing agents, right? That's exactly what they do. So there's a role for everyone at this table, but how holistically you can think of doing things will determine your ultimate success in the market.
Yeah. The testing, the water, well, in design thinking, there's this like prototyping mindset.
That's right.
Which is testing. Like, I know, not like if we think about making the omelets, we probably don't start out thinking we're going to make it 10 times just to see how well it's received. So let's dive into this prototyping mindset, because it's like really important to get something out there, get some feedback from whoever is receiving that, and then improving it. Let's talk about it.
No, listen. So, I mean, prototyping is a whole nother level, right? I mean, in my book, I talk about that there's these kind of 5 design behaviors, right? You have design empathy or empathy. You have contextual awareness. We have creative craft, right? So that's kind of the ability to create and instantiate ideas, iteration and testing, rapid iteration, and then entrepreneurial sustainability. So if we start talking about creativity and craft, which is where you're talking about prototyping, let's use the omelet example, right? So you live with a flatmate in London and you exchange so one, you're right, like you can't make 10 omelets and together, right? That might be a little bit wasteful, but you're going to live with your flatmate for at least a year of the lease. You exchange breakfast cooking duties every other Saturday.
Okay.
So what would be the first level of prototyping? What would be the first level of engagement with someone? If you've just met that flatmate and you're sharing the lease or sharing the rent, you might say, okay, well, I'm making breakfast for you this Saturday. You're going to make breakfast for me next Saturday. What things do you like? So that's just the first interview, right?
Yeah.
And it may be something simple where you're like, I'm going grocery shopping for breakfast, right? Name 5 ingredients that you would normally eat. And it's like, oh, I like strawberries and I like ham and I like, I like peppers and bacon and eggs. You're like, okay. So that may be that first engagement, which is the lowest level, right? There's no commitment. There's nothing. You've spent nothing, right? You've done some amount of engagement. And it might be something where that first Saturday you come back from the Friday nights or Friday's worth of shopping and bring it in. Go, okay, I'm going to make eggs for you tomorrow. Here are the ingredients I bought. I've got ham, I've got onions, I've got green peppers, mushrooms, and cheese. And which ones do you think would work in omelet? And they would say, okay, well, I like these 3 things. And so that Sunday you'd have a first prototype, which was this. They've already decided what ingredients they like, but maybe you cooked it wrong, or maybe you put way too many onions in it, right? On that Sunday, they're like, oh, that was an okay omelet. And so at that point, you've got so the first engagement is just talking and then maybe presenting some very quick options. And that what we call low fidelity prototyping. Middle fidelity was you made an omelet for the first time. The middle fidelity, right? Now they've told you, hey, that was an okay omelet, but there are way too many onions in that. And so now you refine it again. And now you're like, well, the next Sunday, you put fewer onions, but this time you add extra pepper and paprika just for fun, right? Like you find out more and
Uh-huh.
more through that person. Now you're
Mhm.
refining and evolving that. So every Sunday that omelet gets better and better and better. But so by the end of the month, you've made an omelet that is to them perfection. Then you become a really
Mhm.
great roommate because you're always making their favorite omelet every Sunday, right?
Mhm.
So in that
Mhm.
sense, it is both a way to build community, it's a way to build relationships, and at the same time, it's also a way to understand preferences as they evolve. Because maybe by the fourth
Mhm.
Sunday, all of a sudden it's like, man, I've had the same omelet. Though it is amazing, I'm now like, what happened to I trust you now as a cook. What do you think I would want? Now you're like,
Okay.
"Oh, I
Yeah.
know you like savory rather than sweet omelets." Right, and
Mhm.
but what would happen if I paired bacon, which I know you like because it's kind of a savory thing, with apples and cinnamon and made a more of a sweet savory crepe? That's also an omelet, but
Mhm.
it's not.
It's not. Yeah.
So, let me make you
Mhm.
that, and now all of a sudden you've expanded their horizons. So, th
Mhm.
I think in that sense, you're looking at design thinking as a way not only to make successful products, but a way to make successful relationships.
Yeah. So in the process of someone practicing this, they are sharpening their own toolkit when it comes to like empathy is kind of like the
Yeah,
backbone of this, but you become a better and more relevant problem
yeah,
solver, I think.
yeah. I mean, I think part of why I teach on this campus or why I teach in general, actually, is just that idea. I think, at least in the States, right, the art, the theater, radio, television, film. I went to a performing arts and sciences high school. But a
Mm.
lot of that is being cut, right? And so the
Yeah.
A in
Yeah.
STEAM is underserved in a lot of different ways. And we teach critical thinking amazingly well, right? Engineering teaches analytical thinking quite well. It's where you have to start thinking more intuitively, more improvisationally, and more futuristically. That creative
Hmm.
thinking is not taught as well. Some say that, like, and again, I wouldn't agree with this, but some say, oh, well, then you can't teach creativity. I'm like, actually, yeah, you can. It's been proven you can teach creativity.
Hmm.
And so the question is, do you teach it well enough that actually makes people think of ideas outside of the norm? This is why, why humans can't be replaced by AI, because context, creativity can't be programmed in.
Yeah.
You have to take an inspiration and be able to permute it, not by the most common
Hmm.
answer, right? There was actually something in a news article recently about how large language models may have a limit. Because at the end of the day, to write poetry isn't just about choosing what's the most common rhyming answer. It is what will drive emotion contextually,
Yes.
choosing maybe happenstance words that rhyme. So
Hmm.
in that sense, context will always be key. And so creativity, understanding of context, those things need to be taught better. Those things need to be
Hmm.
enforced stronger in our higher education. And so you're right, empathy is the backbone. And by being more empathetic, you're able to understand cultures that are not your own.
Yeah.
You're able to take perspectives that again
Hmm.
are maybe different or seem foreign to you, but you'll be able to appreciate it in a way that allows you to drive a product, a service, whatever, for someone
Hmm.
in order to give them a better life, a better experience, or to help imagine a better
Hmm.
life co-designed with them rather than just dictating it to them. And so that is something that is
Yeah.
really valuable. And then that creativity aspect, exactly, you can hone that as well. So my whole philosophy on that kind of is, yes, if you practice empathy, creativity, and criticality, those three mindsets in the book, you will eventually become better at whatever you do, no matter what
Hmm.
discipline you choose to be. Like I said, we're all little d designers,
Yeah. Yeah.
and not everyone is a culinary Michelin chef. But what makes you
Mhm.
that is whether or not you went to a chef school and then dedicated your trade, applied your craft to the point in which someone else deems your cooking of a certain quality. So everyone has
Mhm.
the capability and should practice those mindsets. And if they practice it well enough through that iteration, then they'll become good at whatever they do. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. I have always thought I'm not creative, but it's really just because I'm like in the box. I don't well, my background is project management, so I create the box.
Yeah.
But because I'm aware of that,
Yeah.
I try not to stay within the box.
Yeah.
And like in doing so, you're pushing limits, or like you're just opening up new neural
Yeah.
pathways.
Yeah.
And I do think like sometimes just daydreaming or
Yeah.
just like randomly thinking of things, you get random ideas that is actually applicable.
It is. Yeah,
Yeah.
your subconscious does that. Actually, that was something I wrote about is that, Karen, you are creative. The fact that you're able to see there was a box, that you prescribe the box.
Mhm,
And now
mhm,
that you decide, you know what? I don't need to be in this box, right?
mhm,
That is showing that your creative muscle is there,
mhm.
right? It's when people don't realize they're in a box at all, right? They're cognitive by like James Adams wrote a wonderful book called Conceptual Blockbusting, which is where that's where the term thinking inside the box comes from, right?
Okay.
He has an exercise that is a 9-dot exercise. People can look up on the internet, I'm sure.
Mm.
But that's where that phrase came from, thinking outside the box, right? And so, but the fact that you know there's a box there shows that you're creative. The people
Oh.
who don't know there's a box, who implicitly draw inside the box because they think there's a box there and they don't realize there's a box there, that's the one that where you need to break, right?
Mhm.
So the fact that you're like, you know what, I arbitrarily made these constraints. I put these and people do this all the time in creative works. I know when my first art, second art class at the University of Texas, my teacher was like, "Oh, I see you constrained yourself. I didn't put those limits on you. You did."
Mm,
And I said, "Yes, I need to, because if I don't, I wouldn't know where to begin."
mm. Okay.
So
Yeah.
many people, because when like they call it the power of the white. If I give you a blank canvas, sometimes the fact that you have so many possibilities,
Mm.
it intimidates you. It scares you.
Yeah.
So people can't just start thinking outside the box right away because there's so many possibilities.
Mm.
So it is human to say, okay, well, let me take a smaller subset of what the answers could be, right? So let me at least draw a single line or a single circle. Now that the power of the white is broken, I have a circle on this page. Now I know the circle is a snowman, an ice cream cone, the head of a clown,
Mhm.
whatever, an orange, whatever. I can still be creative inside the box.
Yeah.
So that's a normal human condition because it reduces the insecurity of not knowing the answer.
Mhm.
People constrain themselves normally because they need to come up with the answer.
Mhm.
Now, the cool part of the creative part is when they go, I arbitrarily put that circle down there so that I could come up with the answers.
Mhm.
If you then release the fetters, see where you go,
Mhm.
constrain yourself again, release it again, constrain it again, release again. That is what creativity is.
Mhm.
The creativity is about episodically both inspiring and then thematically grouping, and then inspiring and thematically grouping. The
Mhm.
neuroscience is kind of, well, at least some of the papers, creativity is being studied by a great number of people. But I feel like I might be missing something. Then that's a signal to your brain to go, okay, that was a box.
Mhm.
I'm gonna take those ideas, I'm gonna put over here, put it on the side, and then now I'm gonna imagine there's one offshoot there that seemed random at the time. What was random about that? And that's that daydreaming part you said, which is when you daydream or when you slow down, and part of this is the creativity network in the brain isn't the same as the critical network in the brain.
Like they're in two sides of the brain.
So this goes back to kind of Scott Taylor's research at Babson and his collaborators. When you are critical, like you poo-poo ideas,
Yeah. Yeah.
you cannot come up with new ideas because you're too busy criticizing.
Mhm. Mhm.
If something's like, wow, this came from nowhere. Like I slept on
Mhm.
it and this random idea popped out. Rather than saying that was a random idea, let's not use it. Right? That's criticizing it. Uh, if you're creative, you go, what
Mhm.
was it about that idea that made me think of that?
Mhm.
And that's usually when the creativity, that's when they always go, oh, that's that spark of inspiration. It's not a lightning strike event. And then what happens now is
Mhm.
that random idea has some type of association with your original group of criteria or your original subset. But it's that free association that allows you to associate another group of sets of ideas. And that's what that is
Mhm.
creativity. You are
Mhm.
finding supersets from a subset. Criticality is finding a single answer from
Uh-huh.
a group of answers. In narrowing your approach, or are you being, like they call it,
Mhm.
divergent convergent thinking? Are you diverging and coming up with many more ideas, or are you narrowing the possibilities? So that's really where the creativity comes from.
Yeah, and that's what you said earlier. The criticality is important too, because I'm sure we have different types of listeners. Some are
Yeah.
more the free thinking. Some are more the critical ones.
Yeah.
So like design thinking is a really, really deep concept. Like it's not hard to understand, but there is a lot to it. And
Yeah.
just with our time today, we're definitely not going to cover all of it. Like if anyone is interested, buy Wayne's book.
Yeah.
I'll put the information in the show notes. So for someone who wants to do something, like after hearing today's episode, they're intrigued. Like
Yeah.
what can they start doing so they can at
Sure.
least start practice design thinking?
Yeah. I love that. And just, for that, the same thing, Karen, for that short plug, right? If you're interested in what I'm talking about, right, my book's called Design Empathy and Contextual Awareness, and you can find it on Amazon. You can find it at the Lawrence King website. It's publicly available now. Some of the things that I think about, again, is cultivating this holistic mind, right? If you're, one thing I always say, or as far as advice for young students or anybody who fancies themselves, who wants to become more of a creative professional, right? Professional who comes up with more ideas, as more to become more successful in their endeavors, whatever it is. One, live richly. Find ways in which you can engage with people that aren't necessarily like you. This could be something as simple as walking across the street to a different area of the neighborhood or metropolitan city you're in.
Yeah.
Right. I know, London has different neighborhoods and groups. New York has different neighborhoods and areas. And just eating at a restaurant that was slightly different than yours and engaging, not just eating, but engaging with people. I think that one is living richly. It doesn't require a lot of money. It just requires a curious mind. And so that will help develop your empathy skills. The creative skills is what I say is see the meta, see the context. You see something in your daily walks of life. Be curious, question, how did this come to be? Why did it come to be? What were the forces behind it? And just asking why this might have happened. If someone might have missed, if you see someone and you're riding the tube and someone missed their station, right? It might be just something like, oh my gosh, they missed their station. And obviously you feel sorry for them. You'd help them get off at the next stop. But at the same time, you'd ask, why did I think that happened? What was it that caused that? And it may have been, and that just something small like that. See the context. Why are you, if you're at a university, a lot of my students, obviously I teach at a university, or a technical institute. I ask my students, why are you here? Why are you taking this class? You're here. Yes, you may be this class this day to pass this test, but why do you even want to pass the test? What's the point of it? And then by allowing them to kind of expand and go, well, I see a broader future for myself. If I get good grades, I see a good job. If I see a good job, I see a better career. If I see a better career, I see a happiness of doing what I would like to do. It's like, see the context, see the meta, right?
That was me. That was me when I was in university.
But that's gotta be, it's surprisingly, sometimes people live their life with blinders on. They're so narrow focused, they never see the meta. And when they don't, then they lose that creativity. They lose that daydreaming. They lose that ability to kind of meander, right? Sometimes life doesn't always present itself exactly the way you planned.
Yes.
And so seeing the meta allows you to pivot. It allows you not to just focus on one thing, but to focus on many interests. And it's surprising how life rewards you when you have multiple interests. You can pivot to a new career. You can pivot to a new discipline. You can change majors. It's never too late to design a life that's meaningful to you, because you have so many ways in which it can be fulfilling.
Yeah.
So that's kind of seeing the meta. The last one I would say is, if you're thinking about developing your critical mind, right, is really thinking about when you engage with things, products, services, people, there's nothing wrong with asking and going, what really drives this forward? Right? What do I really love about this product, or what do I love about this food? And just to say, being able to discern the quality, like, I love this masala chicken. Why? The curry is just amazing. And you can narrow it down to something like that, then you're definitely an engineer, but a little e engineer, right? You're a culinary engineer. So in that sense, you're seeing how the qualities of life or the qualities of certain things contribute to your appreciation of them. Like, that is being an engineer and a designer in a lot of ways. So that's the kind of advice I would give.
Wow. You were describing my life story. or at least like aspects of it. And I think like the common thread is the curious and connecting
Yeah,
the dots. Like try to understand a layer deeper into things
yeah,
instead of just like, okay, I ate this curry, it was good. That was it.
yeah,
So yeah,
yeah.
our life will be all like a lot more meaningful, and if we have more empathy, we create a smoother world, I think, like less friction.
I
But
would agree.
one example
Yeah.
that I always want to use, like as a joke, is if you're sending me a Google map, like telling me where to go, don't send me a screenshot. So it's something like that. So for the last part, let's play a rapid fire round. So,
Go for it. Yeah.
what's something you've designed recently that made your life easier, big or small?
Oh, wow. That made my life easier. Within the last couple of years, I got this digital tablet to start drawing in, and I've been recently recreating some of the UI and some of the software.
Ooh,
So it
wow.
allows some of the drawing software and the note taking software I use. The tools are fine, right? That's fine. It's what I've been doing is I've been using my graphic design skills to create new types of templates just for my workflow. So
Mm,
whether it be expenses, things to do, prioritizing clients, prioritizing classes, I've created templates over the years because I always tend to write things the same way in the same area of the page.
yeah.
And so what I've been able to do is to say, okay, I'm going to just use InDesign, use graphic design
Hmm.
software, and create templates, which I now use as underlayers.
Hmm.
And so when I draw or take notes, it becomes much more fluid for me to work.
Mm,
So it's been very helpful for me to kind of hone my tools over time.
hmm.
Yeah.
Wow. You are
Yeah.
you are a product designer after all.
Yeah. I am a product designer. I've designed everything from automobiles to sunglasses for celebrities. So it just depends.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. Next one. What's
Sure.
what's a design flaw in everyday life that secretly drives you crazy? Like who thought this was a good idea?
Oh my gosh. Oh man, listen, I don't like to cast aspersions on designers, right?
You don't
Uh,
have to
uh, uh,
name names if
yeah, listen, it's interesting. Like there's some things that, I mean, they don't drive me crazy, but they do irk me, right? So some things about like media consumption and how we utilize it, and social media as well, how we utilize it, right? On the one hand, I realize that it is a business, right? If you watch broadcast television, right? Now maybe in London it's different because you have more of a nationalized television service than we do in
yeah.
the States. But the way that ads have both, the push and pull between how you insert ads into watching videos
Mm,
versus broadcast. Like in broadcast television, we know you're gonna watch 12 minutes of TV and then you get like 3 minutes of ads.
yeah.
So it's very consistent. And yes, it's free TV because you can get it off the antenna. But once you digitally start streaming it, now is this, if you pay this much, you don't get any ads because you're paying more. But if you get less, then
Mm,
there's the ad supported. And so this whole idea of it's not very clear to customers what they're getting and why they want it,
mm.
how they want to use ads. So like some of that stuff that can be annoying, like, oh, watch this ad before you see this 30-second YouTube video,
Yeah.
right? So that stuff can be annoying, but I know why it's there. But it is that's always an interesting one. And then the other one I would say is within social media, the kind of arbitration of truth,
Mm,
right? Because of this kind of fragmentation of the media ecosphere, everyone can move into their own little bubble, their own little echo
yeah.
chamber.
Yeah.
And so part of that is there is no, and I think this is currently under talks of regulation, but what is the ramifications of spreading disinformation online?
Hmm.
Right? If we appeal to the humanity of the freedom of thought and the freedom of expression, are there any repercussions if you willingly choose to lie or to post something that is untrue?
Hmm.
When media was in the more traditional media systems of, say, broadcast television or even cable television, there are editors, there are arbiters to fact check your work,
Yeah.
right? So there is none of that online in social media.
Hmm.
So how do we look at that responsibility as ourselves, as technology, especially because I teach at Technology Institute,
Hmm.
and between AI and social media and all the different things that we create to make communication faster and easier, which is great.
Hmm.
But we also have to slow down and think about what is that arbitration? What is that arbiter of truth, such that we don't reward people to disseminate lies online.
Yes. Wow, that's way deeper than just a simple, like, I hate this. Okay, let's talk about the flip side.
It is one of the things that irks me, though. It definitely irks me every day.
Yeah. What's one thing in your home that you think is perfectly designed?
Oh my gosh, that's tricky. Well, I mean, I have there's the first one, which is I love my family. I think that's a wonderful design,
Oh, okay.
right? Because I chose my wife, we got married, we had kids. I think and every day is a wonderful day to empathize with them, see both their successes and their happiness and their travails and sadness, and to find ways every day to kind of design their experiences in a way, right? Like if my child wants to paint, how would I create that painting? Like, yes, you buy the brushes and the paint, but then how do you then design that experience? How do you go, okay, and let's say she gets frustrated because she mixed two paints together and made purple and she didn't mean to, right? And then she's 4, by the way, Sophia's 4. So and Asher's 6. But even looking at it and then saying, well, teaching her kind of that idea. So you made a color you didn't intend, and you're upset about it. How do we make it better? How do we improve upon it? How do you take that lemon and make lemonade? And then how do you show her that creativity to paint again or work with it, right? In art, it work. Just can you make that work and make that they call them happy surprises, right? What are those things that they're happy surprises? So those are designs in a way. You're designing that learning experience for her. And in that sense, I love it. It couldn't be any more perfect than it is. Now, if you're talking about a physical object, then that would be the dining table I designed.
Oh,
so
wow.
Obviously I designed my own furniture.
Wow.
I worked for Pottery Barn for 5 years. I decorated and designed my own house. Right. So in that sense, I took a fixer upper and then wound up renovating it. Well, obviously with contractors as well. I mean, it's not a single person job. But if it was something huge like the kitchen or the bathroom that required electricians and plumbers, I'm not a licensed plumber. I'm not a licensed electrician. But all the other rooms, pretty much, I designed myself. So the dining room table, I worked with a shop, a furniture fabricator, and repurposed a bowling alley. So there was a bowling alley going out of business, and we repurposed the bowling lane.
Oh, wow.
So the bowling lane is 3-inch maple. Like, that's really thick wood. It's solid. So it's not a light table. That's an heirloom product.
Yeah.
It will probably stay with the house forever. So it is a 3-inch maple repurposed bowling alley lane with with the steel, kind of in a modernist. I mean, it's a relative, but warm. It's a rustic kind of in my style. When I decorate along with my wife, we both love modern, but I tend to look at it in industrial chic. Is kind of where I look at.
Yeah.
So if modernism and a farmhouse and an industrial warehouse had a baby, then that's what the usual industrial look is in my interior. So a repurposed bowling alley with kind of more of a steel leg H-frame to hold the wood is kind of what that is. So that'd be the most proud design I have as far as inside the home.
And it's going to be sturdy.
Oh yeah,
think of all the bowling balls that get thrown to it.
I know, and it's because it is solid 3-inch thick maple wood. It's not light, right?
Yeah,
it took
I'm
2 or 3
sure.
people to put it into the house. My kids use it as a fort, as a tent. They use it as a dancing stage because they can dance on top of it, right? Like that's just and because there's no the wonderful thing about the fabricator and their abilities is the entire maple is suspended. So there's like normally you have a kitchen table, how they have little arms or supports, struts underneath the kitchen table. You bang your knee into that and it always hurts. Well, there's none of that. It's just a plank of maple. So they can go underneath it and then they can play inside as a tent. Not something I expected because when I designed the table, I didn't have kids. But now that they have kids, like they can bump their head up right up to the ceiling and not hurt themselves at all because it's completely smooth underneath. And so they play under that all the time, right? Which is just, again, something a happy surprise in the design of life.
Wow. That's just like another design perk.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for talking to me today. Like this... Yeah. Encouraging people to just be curious and connect dots, be empathetic is It's been like one of the main drivers of me starting the podcast. So I'm very happy to be talking to you today.
Likewise. It was a wonderful conversation, Karen. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Mind Blend. If you enjoyed the conversation, don't forget to follow and share it with anyone who needs to hear it. And let's keep the conversation going. Connect with me on LinkedIn or leave me a comment. Until next time, stay curious, keep exploring, and let's continue to blend our minds and discover what's possible.